What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Time Is Now. We're here to talk about why I don't think you should be having cheat meals. Now, let me put a huge caveat to this before people jump on me. I don't not believe in cheat meals. I believe anyone should be able to eat whatever they want to. I think within a competition prep, with the goal to win that competition, I don't think that a cheat meal for 99.9% of people should be a thing. And now I'm going to talk to you why. So first and foremost, we need to establish why you're having a cheat meal. If you're having a cheat meal for psychological reasons and you're giving in because you just can't face sticking on a diet for a long period of time, you probably need to assess why you're doing it, because I don't think that you need to go through that process of torturing yourself and then rewarding yourself with food at the end of the week, or however often you're having the cheat meals. It often incites this binge reward kind of psychology around it. So I much prefer just to keep my cheat meals just like post-competition, because there's a few reasons. Why are you having a cheat meal? The reason for me ever giving someone a cheat meal, or what we should call this is a refeed, a day where you're having more food than you're normally having, is because they're either losing weight too quickly, because they are carving up for a show, or potentially because they're running extremely flat and they need a little bit more food. In all three of those scenarios, performance is what is trying to be increased. You're trying to improve your performance, you're trying to improve the look, we're trying to improve X, Y, and Z. Personally, if you're gonna throw in like a burger, whatever, some salty, sugary food that you've not had in 4 or 5 months, just before a show to try and fill out, and you have digestion issues, you're gonna hold water, you're gonna have gastric stress, you might have diarrhea, then your kind of liquids are out of sync, your electrolytes out of sync, you're not controlling the amount of salt that goes into that meal. There's so many variables thrown into a cheat meal that doesn't necessarily give you anything further. If you're gonna do this like 6, 8, 10 weeks out, or whatever it is, for whatever reason, I still don't think it gives you anything, because the goal should be to give you as much energy as possible. And I'm gonna say like a salty, sugary, burgery fries and milkshake is not gonna give you as much clean energy or usable energy in that moment in time than the same amount of calories in the form of mainly carbohydrates that easily digest, don't cause any gastric stress, and you can continue to go through about your day without having to stop to go to the toilet every 5 minutes. I think that's something that a lot of people underestimate, is that you're trying to eat for fuel, not necessarily for satisfaction. You can make food satisfactory and you can make food taste really good, so it shouldn't be seen as like a treat like that, but it should be seen as food for performance. So what are some pros of cheat meals? I mean, I think mentally they give you a break. I think maybe psychologically they reward you. I think if you've got a moment in time that you want to eat with a friend or family and you can spare that time, you can do that type of thing as well. But I think there's a lot more cons associated with it. For example, digestion issues, for example, poor absorbability, potentially you're gonna get bloated, potentially you're gonna have a stomach issue the next day, potentially you're gonna have water retention, potentially you're gonna have an electrolyte balance upset, potentially you're just not gonna use as much of that energy because it's poorer sources of energy. And I think that is what dictates where we go from a cheat meal to a refeed. And if we look at a refeed, like, what are the pros? I mean, they digest easy, you barely feel it going through your stomach, you still fill out, you still use that clean energy, it's available very, very quickly because you digest it well. It's not stuck in the stomach, you don't have digestion issues the next day. You can see where we're going in this, you can kind of compare what makes the most sense. But if you can accept that the psychological benefit is worth it to you in terms of cheat meals, then go for it. Do your thing. You know, you can go have those. If for you, having that cheat meal once a week, once a month, whatever it is, benefits you more than the digestion issues and whatever, then I think you should go ahead and do it. But personally, if you're trying to be the best, perform the best, utilize the best food that you possibly can, a cheat meal during a competition prep, it doesn't make sense. Even if you wanted to increase your intramuscular triglycerides, I'd prefer it through clean sources. Even if you wanted to increase your sugar and potassium, your salt and potassium, I would do it through ways that I could count it, not just some person behind a chip shop putting salt all over my chips, because you can't really tell. So we've established that potentially on paper it makes a lot of sense to not have that cheat meal in the form of a competition prep. So I'm gonna give you some suggestions as to what type of foods that you should be eating, and maybe the things that you should be doing differently during a refeed, and what you can do from there. First and foremost, I'll probably lower protein a little bit. Protein is probably not going to be the main, one of the main focuses of the refeed, because the idea of a refeed is to replenish glycogen stores, to replenish, carbohydrates that you've been depleting for months on end. Protein's not the goal there. So we can reduce protein in order to make room for more calories within our calorie target for carbohydrates. So for example, normally I'm at 300, I would pull down to maybe 225 or 250. The extra 50 protein that I pull down, you can just slot it straight over to carbohydrates for the same amount of calories, equal calories. I'd be looking to pick foods that digest well, and guess what? It's probably the foods that you've been eating the entire prep, because you've probably been eating clean foods to get the most bang for your buck. They digest well, you've had vegetables, you've been eating clean rice, chicken, all the standard stuff. I would stick to it. I wouldn't try to throw in new things. I wouldn't try and throw in curveballs. The only time I'd try to throw in something new and maybe a little bit untoward and you don't know how it's going to digest is if you're not before a competition, and you're 4+ weeks out, and then maybe yes, you could have a muffin on that day that you wanted those carbs. But for me personally, I just stay away from anything that I've not digested, because I did have like a few higher fat days. I've had a few higher fat days before in my past, or higher carb days, and then maybe you pick up a few more yogurts, you pick up a few more dairies, but you don't really think about it because you're not used to it. And those things cause those gastric stress, and they can blur you. They can really cause inflammation, cause water, and go from there. So maybe lower your protein a bit, focus on your carbohydrates, keep your fats a little bit low as well. I wouldn't keep them at 0, or just keep them at maybe 5 to 10 grams per meal of carbohydrates. Super simple. And I would obviously put those carbohydrates as high as you could physically tolerate them within your calorie range. I'm 100 kilos. For me, 700 carb is enough. 750 carb is just enough. For someone who's 80 kilos and they're carbing up, maybe 700 carb is too much. You've also got to consider, maybe you've been dieting on I've got people who diet on 500 carbs. I've been on 175. So that 700 is like, the 700 carb is 4 times the amount that I've been carbing out, eating every day. But for someone else, it only might be double. So you've got to consider all these variables when you're looking at the amount. But roughly speaking, anywhere between 300 to 800 carb is enough for most people. And then you can choose how much you do over a few days. But I would say for refeeds, for competition specific, higher calorie days, cheat meals are not the way forward. See you guys soon. Peace.